As you know, in the early hours of the morning, the government of Israel approved Decision 1077, providing the framework to begin to bring home all 240 of our hostages. That framework was approved by the government upon the recommendation of the security forces and after passing the War Cabinet and the Security Cabinet. That framework was also approved after the intervention of the President of the United States at the Prime Minister's request to improve its terms, and we thank President Biden from the bottom of our hearts for his active involvement. Under Stage 1 of the plan, we expect to see the release of at least 50 live Israeli hostages, women and children. They will be released from Hamas captivity in 4 tranches, each of at least 10 live hostages. Stage 1 will also see the release of 150 Palestinian security prisoners. They will be released only after the Israeli hostages in each tranche are transferred to Israeli forces. During Stage 1, there will be a 4-day temporary pause in the fighting. Under Stage 2, after Hamas releases the first 50 hostages, for every 10 additional hostages Hamas releases, there will be an additional day's pause. In as much as 50 additional live Israeli hostages are transferred to our forces, that's 100 in total, the next 150 security prisoners will be released in accordance with the same ratio. To facilitate each tranche of at least 10 live hostages, there will be another 1-day pause in the fighting. This morning, the Ministry of Justice published a prospective list of the 300 Palestinian security prisoners to be released from jail if Hamas gives us 100 live Israeli hostages. Last night's government decision empowers the War Cabinet to determine the identity of the security prisoners who will be released from that prospective list in each tranche, the timing for each tranche, and to verify that the conditions for each tranche have been fulfilled before those security prisoners are released. Now, that list of security prisoners was published in line with the requirement for judicial review of government decisions to release persons convicted of security and terror offences. The families of these prisoners' victims, of course, have a 24-hour window to petition the Supreme Court against their release. We are talking about people charged and convicted of violent crimes and terror-related offences, including attempted murder and grievous bodily harm. Among them are people who committed brutal stabbings and shooting attacks against Israeli civilians and police officers, many of whom left people seriously injured. And in case anyone is thinking of drawing an equivalence between the innocent children who were brutally abducted on October 7th and those behind bars for trying to murder innocent children, I encourage you to inspect that list yourself and see why they are in jail. We want to emphasize, lest there be any confusion, we are at war with Hamas, a war that it launched with the October 7th massacre, and that war will continue until we achieve our aims. 1, eliminating Hamas. 2, ensuring Gaza can never again threaten the Israeli people. And 3, bringing home all of the hostages. Last night's government resolution provides that immediately after the pause in fighting necessary for the implementation of this decision, the fighting in Gaza will resume with the aim of destroying Hamas and Islamic Jihad's armies of terror and their governing capabilities, further to Security Cabinet Resolution 27B from the 16th of October 2023. Now, that government resolution empowers the War Cabinet to terminate the implementation of the framework no later than 10 days from the end of the first tranche. Security prisoners on that list who are not released by then will not be released from jail under that decision, and the government decision rendering them will be null and void. We are fighting to bring home all of the hostages. There will be no one left behind. The State of Israel sees itself completely obligated to bringing home all of the hostages, men and women, young and old, civilians and soldiers. That is our duty as a state, and that is our duty in line with the deepest ethics of the Jewish people. And I want to add that, on a personal note, that as we fight a cynical enemy that proudly and openly promises to sacrifice its own people on the altar of jihad, today many of us in Israel, myself included, feel proud to belong to a nation committed to that promise. No one left behind.